Hello YouTube, so today we're going to be talking about pedal boards and how to get your rig quieter. Now I've got my pedal board in front of me here and we're going to go through how I've made this a lot quieter than it was, but let's go for a comparison first so we can all see what we're talking about. So you're going to see a very short clip of my rig being incredibly noisy and awful and horrible, and then a clip from a few minutes ago with the same guitar, same amp, same pedals, but with different patch cables and a different power supply. Here we go. So, how did I get my rig so much quieter? Well, to start with, I replaced these inexpensive, thin, moulded end patch cables with some a lot more expensive MXR by Dunlop patch cables. So these are Dunlop MXR cables. They're pancake end, so when they go into the pedal it gives you a little bit more real estate on your pedal board. Very thick cable, which I find sort of takes up a lot of real estate in a way. Because if you've got two pedals and you've got them together like that, you've got this big nonsense there, and that sort of gets in the way still. So it's not a perfect solution, but if you're going for noiseless, these are a lot quieter than these. So the first thing I did to get my rig quieter was replace these cheap patch cables with the Dunlops. I found instantly the noise was reduced by about 70-80%. I mean, it was still there in the background, but it was a lot quieter than it was before, because before it was louder than my guitar signal, or at least in that ballpark. It was awful, and the more pedals you put on, the worse it got. It was rubbish. So I replaced the patch cables, and we got to a point where the rig was definitely usable live. I mean, definitely the noise was a lot quieter than the guitar signal, so it shouldn't be much of an issue. However, it wouldn't be much of an issue in my bedroom. Imagine what it's going to be like at a venue if there's like stray lights or something. I don't want it to be really bad, so I thought I better go the whole hog and just get a proper power supply, see how much of a difference that makes. So before I was using this Swift P600. It's a tuning pedal which also doubles up as a power supply, and I was using this as my power supply. Now I don't know whether or not this does have isolated outputs, which means effectively that all these outputs are separate from each other, so that each pedal doesn't know the other pedals are there, or something to that effect. That's all we need to know. It's a good thing, and inexpensive power supplies won't have isolated outputs. Now, this doesn't say that it does, and seeing as it was so noisy, and the other ones I've had were so noisy, I'd assume that they weren't isolated outputs. So I looked online and looked for the best option when it comes to really getting a big boy power supply, something that's going to be hard wearing, really trustworthy, reliable, and noiseless, and just high spec. Because I find if you buy cheap, it might end up being a waste of money, as it might not quite be as good as what you really need for the job. Now, A, I'm going to keep using the Swift as a tuning pedal, but also B, it provides me with some extra output if I do need to plug any extra pedals in. So I did some research online into power packs, and what I came up with in the end was this. Now this is the Donner ISO 8 Plus. So I've got 3 Donner pedals now. They're very cheap, and I didn't have any problems with the quality, so I figured I'll trust them on a power pack. And I bought this, and I'm really impressed with all the options on it. So firstly, it can swap down from 230 volts to 115, so it can do 2 different power settings depending on where you are in the world. It comes with a kettle lead at the back rather than a moulded plug, which is really helpful if you lose your plug or you need to replace it or whatever. It's got 8 isolated outputs, and all outputs are truly isolated. It's a very heavy power supply. So we've got 4 outputs that do 9 volts, one that does 9 or 12, one that does 9 volts or 18, and then at the end here we've got 2 9 volts, but they can be power sagged down to 4 volts, as certain pedals will sound different, kind of squelchier, if there's less power running to them than they really want. So you can experiment with that, and I thought that was a really great option. That's the plus part of the ISO 8. So it's a very heavy pedal, it's really quite hard wearing. My pedal board, it's just a load of cheap pedals on a bit of plywood, but it's really quite heavy now. So from what I gleaned online, this is very close to a power supply by a company that has the name that rhymes with Voodoo Babs. So this is a tried and tested design, it's just Donna have done it in a more budget-friendly package. So what I like about this pedal is that you've got 8 outputs, which is really a lot for a power supply. You can run 8 pedals, I mean that's impressive within itself. And off that I can run my tuner, which has outputs itself. So this runs on 18 volts. So I can run this through the 18 volts on here and then run extra pedals off this if needed. So I've always got extra options, although that might introduce a little bit of noise. I also like that it has the power sag feature, but I haven't had a chance to mess around with that yet, so maybe at some point in the future I'll do a video on that. On the downside, I would say that this is still £60, which is, in terms of power supplies, you can get cheap ones for £25, but they're going to be noisy, and I don't know how reliable they're going to be. I doubt they'd be as solidly built as this is. I mean, this is a real metal chassis. You can tell from the off that this is really good quality by the sheer weight of it, which is partly why I've kept it stuck to my pedal board. One of the drawbacks of this power supply is that it takes up quite a lot of room on the pedal board. It really is a really, really big box. So I hope this has helped you if you're having a lot of problems with your power supply. I am by no means an expert, it's just showing you I had this problem before, I've done this, and it's a hell of a lot better now. So I hope this has helped you out there. If you've got any questions, or if you know about this stuff and I've got something wrong, or you want to give some information, please leave it down in the comments, not just for me, but for everyone else to read as well. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has helped, and I'll see you next week.
Bye!